Hi, it's Anne Wilson, the Welsh Chef, and I am here with three amazing women. And I'm so excited for tonight. Well, tonight, my time, but we're from all over the world. So let's call it today's inspiration panel and having more clean, open, fabulous conversations about money and wealth and its role in our lives and what it is, what freedom means to us, the paths we've taken. And so Katrina has been in my orbit for quite a few years and has had the most extraordinary journey and continues to. And you're going to love Katrina's story for its beautiful honesty as well, and that life is vast and brings lots of different elements to it. Brooke, I've known for maybe about 2 years now,
Yeah.
I think, and wow. Brooke has just exploded doing all sorts of amazing things. She is financially free, doing all sorts of adventure. I have to say, Brooke, where are you today? She's in Barbados, so connecting there. Katrina's connecting in from Isle of Man. And Candice lives between Hong Kong and Canada, dialing in from her beautiful home, lake cabin in northern Ontario. And so this is such a joy. So I'm going to jump between you guys. We'll try and stay in connection. But just first off, a little bit, just introduce yourself, sort of who you are, what keeps you in mischief, what's the stuff that delights you right now in this chapter in your life, and where are you at? So Katrina, let's go to you in Isle of Man.
Okay. So I'm Katrina. I'm originally from Ireland. I live in the Isle of Man for the last 7 years or so, and a decision that was prompted by my being part of FFU and a very poignant question that Anne asked me a number of years back. That set it in a motion of events in motion. I've got 3 kids. I home educate them, and I've been working on my financial freedom with Anne in FFU since 2015, and before that with her book and her other smaller courses. So I probably, as I share my story over this evening, it probably has two phases, and that's something I love about FFU is there's so much depth to it that it has stood the test of time with me as I faced different challenges, and it has seen me go deeper layer by layer based on what's been happening in my life, my age, my stage, my season, all that fun stuff. And yeah, I'm a massive fan of FFU, and Anne and the work that she does and how inspiring she is to women. She's been hugely inspiring to me. So I'm a big FFU fan, and yeah, have had huge experience with it. And it's just stood the test of time for me over many years now, and yeah, I love it. I couldn't wax lyrical enough about it. It's an amazing program.
Thank you. And Katrina, we can't wait to dive in more in your story. So we're going to hold that thought. So Candice, tell us a little bit about what keeps you in joy and delight.
What keeps me in joy and delight is I've, in the winter of my life, become a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher, which is a 180-degree turnaround from my former career as a designer. I used to design clothing, and then I moved into interior decoration. I've been self-employed most of my life. In terms of my money journey, I've always had money, but I had a poverty mindset. My relationship with money is like being on a roller coaster. There was ups and downs, highs and lows, fear and ignorance, feast and famine. It was all over the place. I was on this roller coaster ride and didn't know how to get off and didn't know if it was normal. So coming across...
And often just what we see around us is that's all we know. And often it's very hard to actually know because money is it weaves through every aspect of our life, but often it's such a hidden thing. There's shame and judgment. So often, what are people showing us or sharing with us? We often don't know if there's actually truth behind that. Yes. Can't wait to get further into. So you're based between Hong Kong and Canada right now?
Yes.
Are you single, married? Do you have kids?
Single. Katrina, there's life after divorce. I've been married and divorced 3 times in my never-ending quest to find the one.
Oh, man, I love that. And Brooke?
hello. Oh God.
Yourself right now.
Oh gosh, I feel so privileged to be sitting here with you guys, and also, just privileged to have met you in the first place, Anne. Seriously, yeah, because I can't believe how much my life has changed in the last 2 years since making the decision to, join World of Wealth workshop and then Financial Freedom University, and yeah, I mean, yeah. So, like you said, I'm in Barbados now, and I moved out here last year. For 6 months because that's what the visa allows. And then I went to Bali, and then I was like, actually, I just like Barbados. I'm just going to go back there. And to be able to have that freedom to just be like, nah, I just want to go live in Barbados, is absolutely insane. So yeah, and I think, like Candice said, I had like such a poverty mindset before. I had some money, but I worked in film. So, they kind of don't pay so well. It's more like, yeah, so you've got contracts, and also they're like, oh, but this is you're working on Avengers, you don't need money.
Be grateful for the opportunity.
Exactly, yeah. So, and I didn't really think about money very much until I started thinking about money. But it's crazy to see where I am now and to be free, and it's almost like money was the root of that, and I never thought of that before. I was quite I suppose I was a little bit hippie in the sense that I was just like, oh, I don't need money to be free, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an important aspect, because often either in the spiritual world or the more, whether it's yoga or enlightenment, whatever, it can almost be seen as dirty or a bit gauche to go, hey, money is important. But, whether it's from the aspect of wanting to just live our lives fully, whether it's want to contribute. Earlier today I was doing an interview and someone was saying, well, money isn't very spiritual. And I said, well, the only reason the Good Samaritan wasn't just another wishful thinker was because they had a bag of shekels.
Yeah.
And there's no point, and so it's about being an absolute right relationship. And so, Brooke, I can't wait to dive deeper in all of your stories, because what you've also shared, that whole mindset of going, hey, let me go and live and see what it's like to live in Barbados, is about having the financial resources, but also having the personal confidence to know that you can manage the money, and this freedom from, well, could I, couldn't I, fearfulness that keeps us small. So it's this added expansion on the whole that we need together. So Katrina, I'm going to come back to you. So take us through your journey, because as you said, there's been multiple layers to it and there's sides. So go back to the start. What made you first decide to look into this, and give us a bit of a roller coaster, or this fantastic ride? It's not roller coasters are great as well, of what it's been like for you.
I think it was 2015 when I came across FFU, and at that point I had 3 kids under 5, and we were really in money hell, and ends were just about meeting, and I remember distinctly, it was the morning of my kids' birthday party. 2 of them were born in October. We had a joint party, and 2 letters arrive on the doorstep. The ECB hadn't moved, the European Central Bank hadn't moved the rate, but it was our bank had just decided, was making up ground from their big losses, and decided to put both our variable rates up by 0.5%, just because. So that one event freaked me out, because I thought we were just about keeping our heads above water, and with this we can absorb it, but if they do that again and again, we are sunk and we're in big trouble. And that really frightened me. So instead of enjoying the party with my kids, my mind was in worst case scenario on how the hell are we going to get out of this. And then FFU came up, and it was a no-brainer. My husband at the time, now ex, was totally against it, and I thought, sod this. I knew this was the right thing for me to do, so I scraped and I had resigned from my job with the kids. After having the kids, I had a really well-paid job, and I resigned, but I had bits and bobs of money, so I scraped it together and invested in FFU, and without a shadow of a doubt, it was one of the best programs I've ever invested in, and one of the few that has continued to pay dividends over and over, year in, year out, continually. And not only that, but it served as a really good model for me and to my kids. So that's something I can't even put a price or value on. So that I was in a very bad place financially then. And that first phase of FFU for me, I dived straight in. I worked through all the modules. I'm, definitely an action taker, and I felt the pain so intensely that I wanted to fix it by whatever I need to do. So I would do whatever it took, and I put all the different pieces in place. A little bit farther into the program, it was early 2016 when we moved to the Isle of Man. I moved my defined benefit pension against all advice except Anne's, which was, supposed to be the golden egg of pensions. And when I got my transfer value, I thought, you've got to be having a laugh. It was like 10 grand a year. But when I looked at the lump sum value, I thought, wow, I can do a lot with this. This doesn't add up. So I moved it with a lot of trepidation, and I was really freaked out doing it. But with Anne's guidance and support,
Because now you're taking full responsibility. We have to let go of this fairy tale that somebody else is going to rescue us.
Absolutely. And when I couldn't, it took weeks and weeks, and I had to chase it all the time to get that transfer value. They really did not want me to go. And with the money they were making off it, I understand exactly why they didn't. But I was persistent. And when I saw that final transfer value, I was like, oh my God, that is criminal. What they're giving me now and what they're potentially going to give me at retirement. It was, fast forward cost of living, by the time I've got just less than 20 years to retirement, it would be worth very little to me. Whereas if I took that then, it's growing at such a rate now, it will far exceed anything they ever could have provided me. And I'm in the driving seat. I'm not going to have a pension fund that's going to go bust, or it's in somebody else's hands. So that was one of the big things for me. And it really steadied the ship. And that really gave me a sense of ownership as to, wow, I can do this. And that gave me such confidence.
What to do and what to ask, and that you could. Some people just will mostly be listening to this and go, can I do that? And you go, hell yeah, it's your money. No, that's
absolutely
amazing. Yeah.
So that was kind of phase one. I attended a number of your live events, and they were just spectacular, just to meet in person all those amazing, largely women, and just to be surrounded in that cocoon of your tribe, who think similarly to you, who are not going to shake their heads and tot at what you're doing, some next crazy idea. And that was it was lovely. And to attend the calls as well. So anybody doing the program, if you get as much out of it as you put into it. So to show up to the Q&A calls, to do your study in advance of whatever the module is that you're covering, then to show up to the Q&A with the questions you need answering, and to put the work in. So I put the work in, I got the results, and then I probably had a lull then probably after we moved here, because moving to the Isle of Man was predominantly for tax reasons, and it was for quality of life reasons. And after that, then, because you had automated everything and you did your annual dates, there wasn't so much to do. There was almost that initial piece of, lot to do, need to get my ship in order. And then it was in order. And then, you have your regular review points, and that's all good. And it's part of your routine. And you hear Anne in your head at various points going, that's, is this a need or a want? Or, is that an asset or liability? And it's so ingrained in your head that, it just becomes the way you act and the way you speak to your kids and, others around you. And that was amazing. But there was a lull. And then it was probably when you had your last FFU live in London, September 2019. I went with my buddy, my long-term friend, who's an FFUer as well. And it was property focused. So at that time, I was relooking at everything on a bigger scale and thinking, wow, I'm really heavily invested in equities. I need to balance this ship up again. And I had very purposely stayed away from property at that time in the beginning phase, because I'd had a negative experience of property. We had 2 properties, and my accidental landlord, and being unable to sell because of the market. But property is very forgiving, and it was fine. But I was really set against it. But on looking in the cold light of data, I was like, okay, I need property in some regard. And in their interim period, I had taken Anne's advice that you can have a presence in property in equities. So you still have property, they're just not in the physical sense. So a big theme of around 2019 workshop in London was property. And we had a lot of speakers on property, which was really great food for thought. And we signed up to a course then, and We attended it in March 2020, literally just as everything started to lock down. And I got back on to the island on the last boat before the borders closed, and that was it. It was locked down, and nobody could get really on or off the island. So that was a scary period, but
Yeah.
it was scary in that sense because, you know, of what everybody experienced. But then we also suffered another blow in that my husband, ex-husband, is an airline pilot, and his income was wiped out overnight. So we had one income and it was gone. We had no furlough. We were receiving £200 a week for a family of five. And there was no child benefit, there was nothing. We could get access to nothing because we had assets. And that was kind of frustrating, but it was a brilliant reminder to me once I got over the frustration of it, that never ever depend on the benefit system, never ever depend on a third party to provide your wealth. So it's like, right, Katrina, what are you going to do now? And the kids were starting to get older. So I was starting to get to the point where I had a little bit more time to myself. I was still home educating three of them at that stage. And I thought, what can I do? Okay, property. So we investigated that. We did a lot of research in Ireland and across the UK and here in the island. And eventually, through exploring a lot of different options, we came up with an option in the northeast of England where I had lived for a number of years and was familiar with the area. And we started to invest in property with a company that really does most of it for us. So they source the property for us, they manage the refurbishment, they find the tenant and manage the letting. So in the period of lockdown, we bought our first one in December 2020, and in that period we bought in 2 years after that we bought six. So we bought 6 units. We never saw any of them, which most of our family thought we were absolutely we thought, okay, well, I must be doing something right, you know, more black sheep behavior. So
Exactly. You know,
it was just amazing. So the rent started coming in very continuously. It was government, local authority rent, so it was not guaranteed, but very regular, very reliable. And it started to prove
bottom of the
wow,
pyramid
actually,
investment.
I can
Yeah.
do property in a way that works for me. I don't want to be a hands-on landlord. I don't want to be a slum landlord. The company we work with is aligned with our values, and it just works and it ticks a lot of boxes. So having the FFUR foundation at the very beginning, my partner and I were very clear as to, okay, why are we doing this? Right, we're doing this for cash flow. What specifically do we want out of it? Right, well, we both want to be able to take £2,000 out each net per month. So that could be our income to cover, kind of security soup level. So we were working towards that, and we're not too far off that now. We had number 7 completed in November, and number 8 is in the pipeline. So it's happened quite quickly, and that has been, I suppose, phase 2. And in that phase as well of the last 2.5 years, my marriage started to go down the pan, and I found myself having spent most of my life financially independent up to the point where I had kids. I of my own agreement, gave up my salary, which was a nice jammy big salary, and I caught myself, and I found myself in an independent position, and it was horrible, and I hated it, and it caused part of the problems in our marriage, not all, but part. And I'm now starting to become more and more aware of other females around me largely. And it's something that's become a bugbear. So I had to spend the last 2 years extracting myself from a dependency and setting up everything so that I could make that leap. So I couldn't make that request to divorce or apply because I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet, and that was so frustrating. And to be treated as well then by the workforce that, oh well, you've been out of work, your qualifications don't matter, your brain is gone to potty, even though I'd been home educating, I wasn't watching daytime
And
shows.
creating your wealth, and
You were just
doing
written
all
off.
of these things.
So it's been, two halves, I guess, a game of 2 halves with FFU, and I'm sure there'll be more chapters. So I'm now in that position of having pretty much 2023 is about kind of shoring things up for me. I'm nearly there, but I had a little spike in the middle where I was so happy about having cash flow again in my name, totally to do with whatever I want. I went a little bit crazy. I bought my throne that I'm sitting in. I bought probably lots of things I shouldn't have. And I really, lots of wants, definitely not needs. But what I did was, I was in my head, it was like, I need to add streams of income. So the buy-to-lets were one thing. I also converted a garage and storeroom in our house here and turned it into an Airbnb. So that's another stream of income I added in the last 2.5 years, and then a couple of other little bits, but they're the probably two key ones. So it stood me in such good stead, and it's no matter what challenge I've faced, it's been there to guide me, and the foundational pieces to FFU, they're timeless, I think. And it's been a lifesaver, and I'm so grateful to you, Anne, and to your teachings to get me where I am.
Katrina, thank you for this such beautiful, open-hearted, honest, exquisite share, because the reality is life's tough often. Stuff comes along, illness, sickness, divorce, change in situations, fucking pandemics. And I think a lot of when we talk about, you see on the internet, the wealth programs and money programs, all pictured with somebody, standing next to a Rolls Royce or the friggin' yacht or the daiquiri in their hand. Life's not, and financial freedom and creating wealth isn't about landing in some land of unicorns farting flowers. That doesn't friggin' exist. It really is what you're demonstrating, this exquisite personal power that your self-leadership. It's like, you've got your own back, and not just emotionally, but you've also got the resources, as you describe the resilience of having to shift. Well, let's make a plan, go to there, not this collapsing in and going, hang on, where am I not yet free? Hang on, there's a codependency going on there in these areas. Katrina, you're such a leader, and just connect with Katrina. She's going to be doing a masterclass in the Wealth Builders as well, because this is part of the expanding side. Now you are helping so many others now through this property side to create that freedom too. And one thing I know for certain, and I'm seeing it in you and so many others, is that we cannot not transform this aspect of our life without it having a ripple impact. As you said, on some of the family, they just think you're mad. But on others who want to slow down and actually go, hang on, what's really going on here? There's that opportunity to share this. Katrina, just kudos to you.
Just on that, my 14-year-old is my eldest. He didn't say it to me, but I heard him saying it to a friend recently. He's running 3 jobs. He's in school full time now. One of the compromises I had to make because I went back working, but we've worked through that and it's okay. But he's now got a very healthy account balance at the age of 14, and is saving for his first investment property. And I just think, I never had that conversation. He's just asked me as well to teach him a little bit about his share strategy, which I'm looking at the moment. And it's just when you model that kind of behavior, where there's a need there, especially at younger people, they just can't help but absorb it. And it's so satisfying, more than any money in the world, to see loved ones in your family, especially, or friends, absorb that kind of, and make shifts like that. It's like, wow, that is just invaluable. And so,
And when we talk about making a real difference, real contribution, giving people that, and giving your kids and your friends skills, not just some money. Wow. Well, we're going to be coming back. So Candace, tell us a bit about, where were you in your financial journey? What was it that made you decide, hang on, I need a guide. I need to do something different on my money stuff. What was going on in your world?
First of all, I was tired of being on the roller coaster. And then it was after my 3rd divorce, he stripped me of all my cash. So I found myself with no cash, but with 2 properties, which I thought were assets. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me in your course. What is a liability and what is an asset? And I think that a lot of people labor under the same illusion that I did, that property is an asset. But it's only an asset if it's making money.
And if it's working for you and it can feed you.
Yes. So I realized I had to sell one of my properties because I could make much better use of the cash than hanging on to this property that was just causing me stress and aggro, because I had to find a renter, it needed renovation. I mean, on and on and on. So I just saw more and more money flying out the door that I did not have. That's what brought me to your course, because it was also lockdown. I found myself in Canada. It was the winter. I was snowbound. And okay, no more excuses, because I
I
had
love it. You couldn't run anymore.
couldn't run anymore. I had been introduced to you years ago. I think it was 2015. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I watched your videos. I was on your mailing list. And, you know, I'd sit there and nod my head in total agreement, but not do anything. And
Katrina said,
then,
you have to do the bloody work, you know.
exactly. And then you announced this FFU live in South Africa. And then it was like, oh, you know, I don't really have the money. I can't really afford it. I don't really have the time. Anyway, there was all these when then excuses until lockdown came. And well, what else was I going to do? Sit inside and just look at the snow or do something productive? And very similarly to Katrina's story, my money story was also nobody taught me how to have a productive, creative relationship with money. I had this unconscious belief. I didn't realize I had so many unconscious beliefs about money until I took your course. And my overriding one was money is evil. Money is the root of all evil. And then I realized, no, that's not it. The whole quotation is the love of money is the root of all evil.
When we believe it defines us.
Yes. And it
Yeah.
drove so much of my behavior about money. It was hidden. I didn't want to think about it. It was kind of like,
We wanted, but
yeah,
should we?
exactly. So, yeah, I finally sold my property. And in doing your course, I would say I went from fear and ignorance to empowerment, to taking responsibility for letting go of my negative self-talk, like I'm not smart enough, I don't know this stuff, it's all too much for me. Yeah. That was for me empowerment. So thank you so much for that online
Okay,
course.
I'm so glad you did, so that when you sold that property, you had the skills, you had the leadership to give your money that direction, because some people might get it in flow, they get some cash in, but if we don't know how to direct it, how to manage it, how to make it grow, that's why most people lose it, you know, in a divorce settlement or in a big inheritance, or maybe they get a big inflow from their business or their work, or a lottery win. And so you did. So have things changed for you now in relation to your money?
Well, doing the formula to find out what your freedom number is, that was also a big part of it for me, because I realized I have my freedom number. I don't need to be, you know, living in this poverty mindset of the I can't afford it. No, I got to save the money. God knows when the next disaster is coming around the corner. All that fear and stress of potentiality, not reality, was, you know, creating so much havoc for me.
And this is so key, because certainly when I started my journey, I had no idea what was enough. What was my enough number? I just thought, well, if I just work hard, if I keep trying to save on, hopefully at some point, there'll be a point where I can stop and maybe finally be free of this anxiety and that stress, and to be able to enjoy it. But I think so many of us get caught into that. We like this crazy donkey with this carrot in front of us, but there is no there, because we don't know what that is. So I'm thrilled, as you say, when you actually stop and go, hang on, what have I got? Wow, I've got my freedom number. Now it's a matter of how do I be a great custodian? Yes. Because the challenge is, if we don't know where we are, we can end up taking the wrong actions. As you say, you were just in this spiral of stress. Should you or shouldn't you save? Then we can end up having money dramas, because we're not actually being in right relationship with life as to where we are.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's like trying to ice skate when we're on land. You know, we're just doing the wrong thing. So this is so exciting. So that must have been huge, that realization. How were you able to really let that land? Because often this identity disconnect we have between what the numbers show versus who we believe we are. How were you able to make that shift? And how did it look in your life? Is that how you then decided to become a Kundalini yoga instructor?
Yeah, because as you said, that I didn't know what the freedom number was. So I had no idea how much would be enough for that rainy day and for my old age. I didn't want to become a burden, right? And so when I found out, oh, there's a formula, there's an actual formula. And then, at first it's like, oh, formula, I'm not good at math. I mean, it was so much fear that I had to constantly break through for every module, every section of the course. But it was the best gift I gave myself. I was very diligent about the exercises, and I realized that my biggest obstacle to claiming my wealthy, juicy dream life was ignorance. It was total ignorance. So when I saw the number, I thought, oh no, wait a minute, I must have made a mistake.
Got it wrong.
Horrible at math. Maybe I better do it again. I did it 3 times. Oh my God. I had numbers, real numbers in front of me. That numbers are undeniable, right? Numbers tell the truth. And so once I made that realization, I could just take a breath. I could relax. I could say, okay, I'm here now. Where am I going next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is so key, and I hear resonance with Katrina and with you. And one of the things that we also, I think, gets missed on the whole wealth journey or financial freedom or that side is the conversation around safety.
Yes.
Around knowing that we're safe, that we can relax, that we can actually have our own back, breathe, let go of being driven by adrenaline, cortisol, fear, anxiety, because we actually can't make empowered, great choices for ourselves for life when we're in that heightened state. And so this is so important that one of the steps on the journey to freedom is going security suit, protection pate, getting protection in place. And it doesn't sound sexy, but it's as sexy as hell. But we have to go through that. And so thank you for bringing this aspect about going, I could now stop and shift focus and actually be able to give not just your money, but your life leadership.
Yes. And to give myself permission to enjoy my money, which I never did before. I never dared spend anything on myself that wasn't a need, because God knows how much I needed in that bank for safety. And so having that save to spend part was just fabulous, because it's like, oh yeah, I don't need it, but I want it,
And forcing you to have a play pot.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It says I have to spend money on joy. Shit. I just love it. Well, we're going to come back to, where next now. Yeah. So, Brooke, I love it. Tell us a bit about, where were you at in the point and what made you go, okay, I'm going to come into FFU, and tell us a bit about the adventure that unfolded.
Yeah, well, like I said, so I used to work in film, and I didn't really, I was very passionate about it, and I didn't really care about money until I went on holiday with my cousin. We went to Thailand, and it was a bit out of my price range because it was an all-inclusive retreat. And I thought, okay, well, if all I need to do is spend this much, and I'm sharing a room with her, so it's okay. I can just about, I'll push the boat out a little bit. So I went on holiday with her, and she works in the banking industry, right? So she had money. And so even though we were an all-inclusive with everything there, she still wanted to go and do this, go and do that. And I was like, oh man. And she also, she flew business class. I was in economy. Not that I wanted to fly business class, but I didn't have the choice, right? And that's really that trip, right? And it was that trip that I was just like, I started to want money. That was the first time. And I was learning Forex trading. I was learning penny stock trading. It was bringing me absolutely no joy. It was interesting, but that was about it. And even in my job, and everything, my whole life just started to feel like my joy was just going down. And yeah, and I just got to this place where I was just like, feels so difficult just to live an average life. I was doing okay. I was saved, right? I was just like you, Candice, where I would just like put the money away. But still, it wasn't a lot of money, but you know, I had this fear of like I'm not going to have money for some reason. But yeah, I just felt like I was just living an average life, and I was just like, what's the point? And I got really depressed by it. And I decided that, okay, well, I can, you know, there's one way of getting out, or, you know, just make this a life worth living. And, you know, for me, that meant being the person I wanted to be, not just having the things, but being the person. And one of those things was being someone who knows how to make money, right? Being like confident, and, you know, because I see them all around, you know, people are making money. Why aren't I? You know, and I just thought, okay. And I just decided that. And I was actually in a group, Miracle Morning, with my friend Sue, and she told me about a juicing thing, and I, you know, started doing that, and it worked. And then she told me about Ann Wilson, and I thought, okay, let me look into this. And it was when you were doing World of Wealth, and I joined, and you know what? I was so fried out from these courses on Forex and trading stuff that I was just like, I don't know if I want to invest in another program. And because they give you these videos and there's no support, and I was just like, I didn't get anywhere with them. Or at most it was interesting, that's about it. And I don't regret them, but you know, it almost made me not go into Financial Freedom University, you know. And the reason that I did was because when we had our Q&A, I asked you, I was like, do we have a mentor on this? Because that was what it was for me on the others. I was like, I need a mentor. I need someone to actually guide me. And you said, well, you do. You have me. And I knew, because on those Q&As, you didn't, you know, there were loads of people on those Q&As, and you didn't just pick a few of the questions that were upvoted or something. You answered every single one of those questions until they were finished. And I did it on purpose. I put a question after question after question. You know, I was like, does she mean this? And you did. And I was sold. And I thought, all right, this is something that's going to really help me.
Brooke, thank you. You know, you've touched on, well, there were two key points that I just want to thread through. And thank you again for that beautiful share. And I think many of us have had that sense of when our dials tuned down, where our dreams, that light starts going up, because now we almost become slaves to that money. We're trying to get more, and it's this force, it's this push, and we're trying to do the right thing, but we have no idea where to go. And I certainly can relate, and you describe it beautifully as a choice where I could check out, or I must choose, but staying in this nothing land, this sort of bland limbo of non-existence, isn't an option. And, you know, for me, there was also that absolute point. I went, hang on, there has to be an and. Surely it isn't, you can either feel safe, but the lights are out in terms of the joy, or, hey, I can live this exciting, fun life, but always have this anxiety about my financial well-being and wondering, am I going to end up on that park bench? Surely there has to be a point. And I think this is so key, because this is about getting into right relationship with life. We're not meant to feel anxious, depleted, fearful. And we're also not meant to burn ourselves out and just consume voraciously with no consequence. You know, but we're not taught how to be in right relationship and how money is meant to serve us. So just thank you for that, because I think there might be a lot of people just, it almost in a way where we're told that, oh, well, that's just the way it is, you know, that you put your dreams in the bottom drawer, and then people numb with food, social media, TV, whatever it is, because it's checked out. And so thank you for choosing life, and for you. And then you speak about trading, and this is a bugbear for me, because there's a lot of this, and people get caught into this, the Forex trading, the crypto trading, the penny stocks, this. And I fell for that too, because there's also this aspect, we're taught that if we can just earn more, we'll be okay. So we think that money is the solution to our money problem. So we try and find ways to make money. But what happens in most of the schools, they're just another job. And actually very few people make money from those trading activities because of a very specific mindset. It's boring as hell. If you want to, it's a very specific, it's kind of interesting, but it's not where, and it's a very active thing. And so a lot of people, we're not taught again what is actual investing, what's actually an asset. And so a lot of people think when they maybe come across Financial Freedom University or investing that it's another trading. It's not it at all. So thank you for bringing that in, and thank you for also just trusting you, but also describing that kind of that journey of where it can come like, shit, is there ever a path here? I mean, it's just so amazing. So you started Financial Freedom University. So where did you go? What were your steps, and what are the things that made the big difference for you that you're now living between Barbados and Bali and wherever else?
So yeah, I guess when I started, the biggest thing was just looking at those percentages. Like, I looked at it and I was saving way too much. Like I was not spending anything. And I, at first because of the mindset that I had a little bit of, I had so much pride.
Really? It's nothing wrong with having a good, strong saving muscle because you can turn to it. But when it itself becomes an aspect of depletion, we have to be careful about our monsters.
100%. But I looked at it and I thought, actually, okay, well, this saving, well, what if it was in my pay myself first pot, right? And that's where I started shifting things and, just looking at my income differently and like rejigging the percentages to what I felt was right for me. And that was the first thing I did. And yeah, I like Candace was saying about the freedom number. And like when I did that, I was like, oh my God, I'm not far off. I was like, oh my God, look at this. Because so I'd actually, I had a couple of properties, not in semi-intentionally. So I had my first property and then I rented it out and then I got my second property and I had lodgers in there. So I actually had quite a lot of like income that was coming in anyway. And then when I kind of put it together and like, it was like a movie where everything just started like coming together. And I realized that if I did the same thing that I did with the first property, which was take out the like remortgage and then take some money out and then bought my next one, I did the same thing with
tax. Hello.
Yeah, and I was like, well, and this was like just after, kind of during COVID time, and I kind of just called up my bank and said, well, what can I take out of this? And it was enough for another property. And I did them the numbers, and I actually wanted to go up north, but everything was kind of closed, so it was difficult to go up north. And so I just thought, well, let me just check out my area. And yeah, I found a perfect like rundown place. I fell in love with it when I went in. Because actually when I was looking for my property, my residential, I saw a property that I really loved and I wanted to do up, and an investor came in and put a higher offer in and I didn't get it. And I was always just like, oh, that investor. And now I thought, I'm going to be that investor.
Yes.
So yeah, I bought this property and I bought it like below market value, so that the money, I bought it with the money in it, and so that was
knowing how to do the numbers, and then that gives you confidence because
Exactly.
you know how to do the numbers, you see where it is, and then the numbers, not emotions, do the talking.
100%. It was so I wasn't scared. I knew what I was doing. It was like just laid out there in front of me. And when I say I fell in love with it, I fell in love with the numbers more than anything else, right? And yeah, and I actually did it up myself. I wanted to be hands-on with it. I was thinking about the tenants. I'm very much a connection person, which I'll come on to in a minute. But I loved the labor of love that went into it, and thinking about the people that I was going to be serving by doing this. And I have amazing tenants in all my properties, and they allow me to live this life, and I'm so grateful to them. So I'm glad that I was able to give that to them. And another thing is that I quit my job at the end of 2021. 2021. And the thing is, I worked in film, right? And we had a lot of pride working in film, like we get to work on this, we get to work on that. It was very much part of my identity. And I always said, like, even if I didn't need the money, I would still work here, And I think, it's a lie that I told myself. It's probably a lie that most of us tell ourselves, And I guess when I realized that I didn't need the money, and I realized that, I came across coaching. That's what I do now. When I don't need the money, I realized that like connection was such an important thing for me, and that's why trading and Forex and penny stocks didn't work.
Yeah,
it wasn't me. Yeah.
And this is so key, the choice, and maybe you'll work in film again. I love the fact you're coaching, that ripping out, help people sort of see their truth of their life. And, all three of you, and here's four of us. We are literally on 4 continents. Well, technically, I guess you're both in North America, Candace, but, I'm African, we're Irish, we're this, we're that. We can have these different labels, different age groups. And we are so beautifully unique. And when we really get to go, what is my truth? What's my wealthy life? That there is this common thread of going, but I want my life to be mine. And it needs to be not just on my terms, as in I can get to say what I want to do and when and how, but I want it to be my truth. And I think more and more of us are being called to our truth. We're already worthy just by the virtue of being given this gift of life. So what is life calling us to express? And then how do we use that life force, that money, that power to it? And each of you living completely different lives, unique lives. What is wealthy for each of you is so unique, but there's this beautiful thread of truth and integrity. And I'm getting a bit emotional. It just feels, for me, such a gift that we can model. But first, to give ourselves, where we can drop all of the stories of what we think we should be and what we should be having and how to fit in order to be worthy. And that liberation. And Brooke, that you can now, you've given yourself and the world that gift of coaching. Candace, you're doing it through your yoga and the Kundalini yoga and coaching. Katrina, you're empowering so many people now on the financial side through the added part. So Katrina's been very quiet on that side, besides building up her own property, but she's now helping many others also create these property portfolios. And I'm just so in awe and grateful for the choice that there was a point where each of you said, I am not prepared to not live life. Mm-hmm. One, you chose you, and then you took action. All three of you said, yeah, you signed up, but you still had to pitch up, do the work. I could be the guide, I could be there, but this is just so inspiring, because I think none of us will sit here and say it was easy. Mm-hmm. There were times where I'm sure it was tough, but actually not doing it was not an option. So Katrina, for you right now, you've been in this journey, you've been in my orbit for the longest, different sides. What is that message going on in terms of, you've shared a lot of, what has this been worth to you, but I think if there was just a nugget in terms of knowing that this journey keeps expanding, who you discover about yourself, and whether it's people contacting you for property or considering FFU, what's it like to say, how does someone feels that edge, not just sort of sign up and yes, join FFU, but how do they stay in? What was that nugget that for you helped you stay true?
I think the pain. I remember you doing, as part of the foundational piece, answering those questions where you were getting to grips with your why and the pleasure side. But then we had these really horrible questions about if you do nothing, if you stay as you are in 5-10 years, what does that look like? And that stuck with me. And I came to understand that pain was more of a motivator as a sadistic ex-Catholic than pleasure was. So it was like, okay, I feel this. And it was almost like I need to put my fingers into the wound and go, okay, right, this is really horrible. And if I keep doing this, life is going to be miserable, and I'm going to model a pretty pathetic, pass a pretty pathetic model onto my kids. And it was more so probably them and what I could do to them. And it was that question about, well, what's this going to mean for your loved ones? And I was like, no, there's no way that's happening. And either way was pain. I probably, if I had have gone and done nothing, I would have lost myself. And yeah, there was just, that wasn't an option with 3 kids. It was just, there's no way I was doing that to them. So it was going into the pain and really going there, not skirting over it, diving right into it and answering those questions that you asked really honestly. And that catapulted me. It was like, inaction is not an option. I'm dialing out. It's just not an option, giving up. So I just dove in and swam. And I think one of the big things that's come from me is I knew at the very first event I went to with you in 2016, I knew I needed to leave my marriage, but I did not have the courage I wasn't in the right space to do it then, but I knew. And I knew I had to get my ducks in a row and things needed to fall in place. And it wasn't until I felt pain again with COVID that it really pushed me. And one big thing that kind of the theme running through this for me is, and I have a TEDx talk in my head about this, is, stay-at-home mothers, in whether they're part-time, full-time, or even on top of a job, it should be a salaried position. There is no value placed on raising children in society now, and it's very sad. And that to me was a huge value, but it's something that a bigger message I want to bring. And one of the things you mentioned, that a way I'm doing that, or to try and compensate for that, is we had our first property event in September, October last year, and it was the first property event I've been at, and most of the attendees where there were 80% women, and not the opposite in terms of men. There was very few males at it, and that to me, seeing some of those females complete in their first buy-to-lets, that was like, wow, that gave me more satisfaction than watching me do my own. That was like, yeah, great. I know, mine are ace, cool, but seeing them and the joy it brought them and giving them the confidence and knowing, wow, I got my first one. Now it's not that complicated. I can repeat this. And it was like, that was invaluable. So I kind of got a feel for what you get then watching us doing the same. It's so satisfying. So I thought I want to do more of that. Let's shake this up and show women in particular who largely, maybe down to self-worth or lack of confidence, stay on the edges and let the males dive into the property, because it's another industry dominated by males. And I thought, no way, this is not happening in this. So I was like, let's shake this up.
Katrina, you described that importance of that pain so acutely, because comfort is being comfortable is never a good place. Being comfortable is actually where the dial is turning down, like Brooke described. It's going into that, the joy is just quietly draining away, and we're just left with this sack of flesh and bones, and that is from a place of comfortable. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have comfort inside, but for anyone who's listening, and a lot of people say to me, maybe I've left it too late, or maybe maybe it's okay. This is okay. I shouldn't fuss, because we're afraid of shaking that up, of what might come about. But really going through and going, really, and in many changes, and my life continues to expand and change. And just like Katrina knows, I just 3 years ago, ended my 20-odd year marriage, and it was that I had outgrown it. It was no longer a fit. And it also took me a little bit of a while to do that. But I gave myself permission to say I was going to go on another wealthy journey of going, hang on, what do I still need to learn about myself? That, where I go, there I go. And so often when people think, well, if I'm in a different job or in a different side, then my life will be different. Well, no, our relationship with life and ourselves and money and resources and who we are and what we choose to claim and what we tolerate and what we don't is down to us. No one else is going to do that. And really sitting with that. I also, in that, and I've done this in various stages. I did it in my money journey when hang on, am I really saying that my dreams don't matter, the adventures that I want, that I'm just going to settle for that? That was, way back when I started the money side and went, hang on the and. But again, I did exactly that. And I went, yeah, this is comfortable. I could mostly stay in this partnership of sorts. But when I projected forward and went, really, am I prepared to go to my grave for the next, 30, 40 years, whatever juicy life I have, not experiencing the level of intimacy, emotionality, erotic expression, all the other things that I now have a choice to explore because my mind's not being consumed by worrying about money. I go, hang on, I've created this liberation and freedom in so many areas. part of my responsibility is to then keep exploring and then projecting forward and going, no, that is not a life worth living. Well, it's not a life that I'm prepared to live. And then having the courage to say no, which then is still a big step. So Katrina, you described that so beautifully. And also this aspect of what society values. Because whether it's that stay-at-home mom, whether it's the creative, there's also the reality is we've got a strange society. Money gets paid for different things. You've got the financial industry earns the biggest slice of the wage bill, but actually it adds no value in our society. It literally adds no net value. And so so when we can start letting go the story that earning has got any relation to value or contribution, then we can start seeing clearly going, oh, well, maybe I can disconnect money and income from my worthiness. And I can do that by getting assets doing that and realize it doesn't define me in any friggin' way. Now I can love being that mother, that parent, that fur granny, that creative, because I've uncoupled my worthiness, my identity, and my sense of value from the flow of money through my life, of how it's earned. And this is such an important thing that I'm trying to get but it's so ingrained in us. But you've just described that absolutely beautifully. Oh, so Candace, you are now in this beautiful chapter. You speak about the winter of your life. Hell, you're not even anywhere near winter. You're in this. We have multiple seasons. You're in this glorious new spring and summer, realizing you're financially free. You've got resources. You've got vitality. You've got sexiness. What's in store for you? And what's that focus you would say to somebody now who maybe finds themselves in a similar position as you were in?
Well, for me, I agree with Katrina that it's pain is the motivator. And the pain that I experienced was my not enoughness, my negative self-talk, which made me constantly over-deliver and undercharge. And so it didn't matter how hard I worked.
Appeasing and performance. Like
Exactly.
the seals in a show for the few fish to be thrown at us.
And being a chameleon, not really knowing who I am, because I'm just trying to fit in. I'm just trying to, I just go along to get along. And
Well, you were.
I were, exactly. Yes, I was. So now my course focuses on this aspect of us. In Kundalini Yoga, we're taught we have three minds. And when the three minds are working in balance and harmony, that's when you have wealth and abundance, whatever that means to you. You live a life of joy, purpose, and love. And that's my focus now. I want to share that with other women that there is a way out of the pain. All you need are a few tools. You can move out of this
financial foundation.
Exactly. Yeah. And it could be in all areas of your life, once you overcome the money thing, then it applies to everything that has to do with how you feel about yourself, really.
Yeah. No,
your
absolutely.
Worthiness.
Yeah. And I can really sort of hear that element of when you realize, hey, you've got this foundation of financial certainty.
Yes.
That liberation allows you to now explore and express.
Yeah.
Just so beautiful.
But the first step is getting to that point, right? Yeah. You have to be in enough pain to want to get to that point.
And then to be prepared to do the work.
Exactly.
And get it in and make that shift. Because, financial freedom and creating wealth is a participation sport. In fact, life is a participation sport. We have to actually participate in it and make it happen. Oh, so Brooke.
Before you go to Brooke, I just want to add an interesting story. I met two ladies in FFU. One lives in Oslo and one lives in Berlin. We have been meeting every month on Zoom for 2 years.
Oh, man, I love that. I didn't even know.
Yes.
We have this global community and to have like-minded people.
Yeah. And the three of us have collaborated. We're going to be doing a week-long yoga retreat in August to empower women to move into their wealthy, abundant lives, whether that means financial freedom or falling in love with themselves or manifesting the relationship they've always dreamed about, whatever it is. We're doing it. We've decided to do it. We've been talking about it for 2 years, and we're just going to do it.
Candace, I just so love this. You know, as Brooke shared, you know, it was another FFUer that told her about it. Katrina speaks about being in partnership. I think when we also really get, we're not meant to do this alone. And I don't know for each of you, for me, one of the important parts of FFU and the Well Chef world is the community. It's having a place to have these clean conversations. It's having sisterhood, or we can just call it community, where you can connect and go, well, I'm wanting to do this. I'm doing this investment. And as you say, they don't just think you're crazy, but say, hell yes. And have you done your numbers? And hey, that is so, thank you for sharing that, Candace.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
And this is so for these beautiful ripple effects that go out. Now, all the people that benefit from that collaboration of the three of you, of that FFU family. Oh, that is so cool. So, Brooke, somebody sitting there, maybe a saver, not too sure what to do. What would your nuggets, what would you coach them on in this?
Sorry, say that again.
So, you know, being in that coaching world now, if somebody was sitting there as a saver, maybe they're in that bleak space going, they've tried a few things and their joy dial is feeling, then they're going really point of this a lot. What would be your guidance to them?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, and this goes like for me as well, is, you know, not being afraid to invest in myself. Like that's been my biggest takeaway from, you know, since joining FFU is, you know, that money is not there to sit there and do nothing. It's there to invest in, whether that's my growth, whether that's in an asset, which my growth is also an asset, but, you know, being able to invest in yourself and, you know, say that you're worth it, you know, putting that money down and spending it on yourself in those ways, and investing in yourself, I think is the biggest, for me anyway, is the biggest joy that I can give to myself, because I love learning, I love growing, and connecting is also a really big one for me. I was actually speaking to some people in a marketing program that I'm in, and I'm a little further along the way than them. So they were just asking me some questions. And she said, how do you get over the, you know, when you first put your ads out there and you're spending, how do you, like, was it like nerve wracking for you? Because I had 3 months before I made my first client. And I said, well, I didn't really think about that. And I put this down to you, Anne, right? Because I didn't. That was an investment. That was what that's there for. And just like you would invest in stocks and shares, you don't just take it out. You just wait until it goes up. That's what you do with it. And I didn't even realize that was my mentality until she asked me that question. And I was like, well, that's what that's there for. You don't want to stop it. If you stop it, you've lost your money. You have to keep going until it starts making money. And
I love that. Absolutely. You know, you've got to plant that asset, let it get traction, let it grow, trust the process. Yeah.
100%.
But trust it not blindly, trust it with knowledge.
Yeah. And with guidance, you know, and I think that was one of the biggest things. Like I never looked at, so I started my index trackers when I joined FFU. And I remember coming into the Q&A and being like, how do I set it up? And you literally just went through it with us, like live. And so I just like followed through, and I literally just set it up then and there. And since then, it goes in every month, and I'm just like, okay, that's set up.
You know, the absolute nerdy geek in me, because I still get a kick every time, like, this is how we do it. Because, you know, I think it is made, and it can feel scary. You open up that platform and you just see numbers and you go, oh shit, am I going to get it wrong? And it's that joy going, doesn't have to be that complicated. And when somebody does, like you and Katrina and Candace, takes action, it is just such a joy. And we just see this beautiful ripple effect. Well, wow, I'm noticing this time. I'm just so grateful for all of you giving your time from Barbados and Canada and Isle of Man. And mostly, I am so grateful that you're in my world. You really do make my life wealthier, richer. And I know we're not meant to do this alone, and who we journey with matters. And I am so grateful that I get to journey with you. And whilst in some levels, yes, I'm the guide, there's that cliched phrase from that movie, was it as good as yet? You make me want to be a better person. But I think there is. It's who we sit around with. And, you know, there's that rising tide lifts all boats. But there really is this aspect, I think, when we can be in a place where we see the beauty and the magnificence in each of us, it cannot but expand it. And I always feel so richer for being able to do this. And I'm so grateful to you. Just keep rippling that out, keep living you and trusting this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Bye.
Bye.